1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we start?
Yes.
I would like to call the meeting to order of the UTC. It's 6:30 on November 18, 2015. First, we need to start with roll call.
Mr. Sahel?
Here.
Ms. Sullivan?
Here.
Ms. Ream? Here. Mr. Condon?
Here.
Mr. Leonetti?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Winchester has been excused. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to announce that we have a complete quorum, and now we proceed with the minutes. Can we get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from October 14, 2015? I'm freezing. We have a motion for approval by Nicole Ram and a second by Commissioner Joel Condon. Are there any objections? Minutes are approved. Next, we're moving to disclosures. Do we have any disclosures for this meeting? Commissioner Joe Miller?
Thank you. In the case of 2015-0088 Alaska Zoo site plan review, my company is currently doing work there, and I'm going to recuse myself from that case.
Yeah. And Commissioner Ed Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the case number 2015-0088, I've discovered since our last meeting that the company I work for is doing work at the zoo. I do not. Financially, I'm not working on a project at the zoo personally, and I thought I would just offer that up to the commission. And I can act impartial.
Okay, can we get a motion to direct Commissioner Leonetti to participate in the case? I'm wrong, I know.
So which person are we starting with, Madam Chair? We're going to start with Mr. Miller?
I just started with Ed, sorry.
Okay.
We have a motion by Commissioner Sahel and a second by Commissioner Nicole Ram. Now, can I get a motion?
Madam Chair.
Okay, the motion has passed.
Well, I haven't voted yet, so I can't have passed.
Oh, sorry. Okay, can Commissioner Sahel, can you state your motion?
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to direct Mr. Leonetti to participate in case 2015-088 Alaska Zoo. And I would like to speak to that when I get an opportunity.
Will you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, before we blow through to approval. I guess I just want to inquire to Mr. Leonetti. So you have nothing to do with the master plan or the master planning or the moose enclosure that we're going to talk about or any of those projects? Can you disclose, what you're working on at the zoo?
I'm personally not working on anything at the zoo. I discovered through dialogue with coworkers that Kaufman Engineers, the company I work for, has a contract currently in CA for, I forgot if it's the, I think it's the polar bear enclosure, which I knew nothing about until they mentioned it to me. And I was like, oh, okay. And it's my understanding it's almost done. Like 90% CA is done. And other than that, I have no involvement at all at anything going on there.
I think that explanation is pretty clear, and based on that additional information, Madam Chair, I'm going to support the motion to direct Mr. Leonetti to participate.
Commissioner Nicole Rem, would you like to speak to your motion?
No, I agree with Mr. Sawhill.
Okay, Commissioner El Lunari is directed to participate in the Sioux case. Now, can I get a motion? Oh, both. Okay, the motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, can I get a motion for Commissioner?
Slow computer tonight, huh?
Yeah. Can I get a motion by Commissioner, to direct Commissioner Joe Miller to participate in case it was the Sioux also? Yes.
That's right. We're doing the creek restoration work right through the moose habitat.
Okay, we have a motion from Jim Sawhill. I need a second motion. I have a motion by Nicole Rem. Commissioner Sawhill, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I move to direct Commissioner Miller to participate in Project 2015-0088 Alaska Zoo.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
Would, and I do not intend to support the motion. Commissioner Miller is working directly on a project we're going to talk about tonight and has a financial interest through his company, and I do not intend to support the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Sawhill. Commissioner Nicole, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, and I agree with Commissioner Sawhill.
Thank you. Now we get to vote. The motion didn't pass. Commissioner Joe Miller, you're excused from participating in the Sioux case 2015-0088. Thank you. Do we have any other disclosures? Okay, next in the agenda, we have 1% art review. We have a photographic wall mural that depicts historical and current photographs of the Anchorage Fire Station. Do we have any comments on that? Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to do a presentation? No? Staff, do we have any report?
No, there's no presentation. It's just a normal maintenance, and if there are any concerns, safety or maintenance concerns from the commission on this particular piece.
No objections, no comments? Okay, I guess we need a motion by Jim Sawhill and a second by Joe Miller. Commissioner Jim Sawhill, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yep, Madam Chair, in the these are always strange when we don't have a case number. I move that we express our approval or non-objection to the 1% art for Fire Station. I believe it's number 3. I think the proposed 1% art looks good. I don't have any maintenance concerns. I think it's appropriate for the fire station, and I'm going to support the motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Joe Miller, would you like to speak to your motion?
Nothing else to add. I'll support the motion.
Thank you. Now we get to start voting. The motion is approved. Thank you. Now we are going back to the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes, the meeting minutes? So we're going back to... Okay, yes, sorry. We're moving to the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda. I have a motion by Ed Leonetti and a second by Commissioner Nicole Rem. Commissioner Leonetti, would you like to state your motion? Does anyone need to pull anything from the consent agenda? No? No objections? Okay, the consent agenda is approved. Now we are moving to public hearings. Yeah, Joe, you will have to recuse yourself. First, we will be reviewing case 2015-0088, Alaska Sud. The procedure by which the public might speak to the Urban Design Commission at its meeting is, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for the public for testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Urban Design Commission Rules of Procedure. Petitioners, 10 minutes. Representatives of groups, 5 minutes. Individuals, 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you might be asked questions by the Commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by a Commission. An individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Urban Design Commission takes, except Commission recommendations to the Assembly which are not appealable. Appeals must be filed with the Clerk's Office within 20 days after approval by the Urban Design Commission of the resolution, which is the Commission's final decision. A fee for the appeal is required at the time of filing. Do we have a staff report?
Madam Chair, there's only a bare quorum for this particular case. Maybe the petitioner needs to be asked if they wish to proceed with just a bare quorum or to be offered a one-time postponement.
Do we have a petitioner? Would you like to proceed with the... Yes, which of the petitioner is to proceed?
Madam Chair, would you like to have that agreement placed on the record?
Could you please come to the front, state your name?
I am Michelle Ritter with Dow, and we would like to proceed with case 2015-0088.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The purpose of this request is to amend the approved 1989 master plan to document changes that have been made at the Alaska Zoo since it was approved in '89, and also to show future changes that are currently identified and, if possible, establish the review and approval process for future changes. A master site plan for the Alaska Zoo was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission originally in 1985, and again, an amendment to that plan was approved in 1989 and again in 2004. A zoo is, this is being reviewed under the old Title 21, which is permitted outright. Under the new Title 21, it will become a conditional use. There are no changes proposed with this submittal. The zoo has existed since 1969 and predates much of the surrounding development. However, it is surrounded by R6 zoned and residentially developed property to the north and east. The Diamond H Equestrian Center is on the west, joins the west property boundary. Staff does support a condition that would allow the zoo to develop and redevelop animal exhibits and related facilities and structures within the secure exhibit area without a requirement to amend their site plan conditional use, as long as it's in compliance with the special limitations of the underlying zoning and the stream protection setback, which has been a subject of considerable discussion in preparing this case with the petitioner and their representative. However, in terms of the process for review changes at the zoo, the following changes would need to be reviewed under the public hearing process in accordance with Title 21. Those are listed as any increase to the acreage of the zoo, such as the acquisition of the property adjoining the west petition site boundary, which is currently occupied by the Double H Ranch, changes to the parking lots, changes to the entrance to the zoo, changes to exterior signage and/or lighting, and changes to driveway entrances from O'Malley Road. There are currently 4 approved driveway entrances. This case was originally scheduled for October 14th. However, it was postponed because additional information came to light, and that wasn't taken into account when the staff packet was originally prepared. And it dealt with the creek setback, the Little Camel Creek setback. And there was an improvement or a realignment and creation of ponds, realignment of the creek and creation of ponds for to improve the fish passages within the creek. And this was done by under the authority of the Project Management Engineering Division, which issued the RFP to have this work completed. And there were many discussions regarding the improvement to the fish passage with the Alaska Zoo personnel. However, it was never stated in their original design that there is a required 25-foot stream protection setback. And the original design showed that the fencing for the new moose habitat would cross the creek, and that there were other encroachment. Fence did also encroach into that 25-foot creek setback. Through a series of meetings and a site visit by staff from Watershed Management, there was a post-construction erosion and sediment control plan, and it was, along with photographs that were taken at a site visit by staff from Watershed Management Services, and through tour of the zoo with the staff member, the orange line on that map that was supplementary to the packet indicates where the fence would be located. And this was apparently came to agreement between staff and zoo personnel. I do not know what the subject of the conversation or how that agreement was reached. I'm sure that zoo's personnel or the representative can provide information on that. So that was the issue, and we did amend the recommended conditions of approval. They start on page 2 and 3. and continue to page 4. They basically deal with development and redevelopment of the animal exhibits and related facilities and structures within the secure exhibit area is allowed without amending the approved site plan and conditional use. Any other changes in accordance with Title 21 requirements are laid out as to what those changes would be. Condition 2 is the intent of that is that the plans within the department are rather out of date. We'd like to start with a new base map that really shows everything that's happened since 1989, and if possible, put on the future proposed exhibits on that base map. Condition 3 is just resolve the need to verify the parking lots in the southeast corner and the southwest corner of the property of the site meet the landscaping requirements for parking lot landscaping. The 4th is all conditions of approval previously granted remain in effect. And the 5th condition is recommended by Watershed Management Services after they visited the site and after what I understand is an agreement on the new location for the fence, is outside the moose fence enclosure shown on the attached map and photos. The 25-foot stream setback on both sides of Little Campbell Creek shall be managed in a manner consistent with the stream setback provisions of Title 21. It should be noted that throughout the discussions between the contractor for the creek alignment with the staff from the personnel from the zoo was never informed that there was a 25-foot stream protection setback, and the design originally showed the fence within the stream protection setback as well as crossing the creek. And it is possible that if the zoo had been informed of that required stream protection setback, they may not have agreed to the realignment of the creek, because the moose habitat has long been planned for that area, and the realignment of the creek was made knowing that the moose habitat would be there. It would be the fence for the moose habitat would be encroaching into the stream setbacks. So there were a number of meetings with zoo personnel to work out what would be best, because the zoo was not made aware of the requirement, and they had long since planned on having that moose exhibit transferred to where the elephant exhibit used to be. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have a few questions. Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to get clear of the process. Typically, master plans are reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and this, I guess, could be interpreted to be it is suggested in its old code, which, if it's a public facility, is a two-step process, and this is implied that it's a one-step process, which is kind of like new code. So I'm a little bit confused on why we're looking at it to update a master plan, since master plans typically go to P&Z. And so clarification on that would be great. And maybe you could start with a clarification on what section of the code puts it here in front of us.
Through the chair, Mr. Leonetti, the master plan was originally approved by the commission, and then subsequent changes to the master plan after it has been approved do come to the Urban Design Commission for review and approval.
Okay.
And that's in AMC 2115.
A bunch of numbers after that.
015. Is it 015?
Which is public facility site plan review.
Yes.
Okay. And the other question is, with the moose habitat, so if there was a approved master plan and the Title 21 was not getting rewritten and old code expiring this December, would the moose habitat trigger a public facility site plan review by this commission?
Through the chair, Mr. Leonetti, it may not have triggered it, but however, the a realignment of the creek is what came to light with the review of this master plan. The planning division did request that there be an update to bring us up to date on all the exhibits that have been introduced since the last master plan was approved, and then to provide information on what future exhibits. And the moose habitat was one of the future exhibits that was planned in the location where the elephant exhibit previously was. So they submitted the request and the update to the master plan, and the request for what procedure do we follow next in future reviews of the master plan. And it was determined that through discussions that those items listed in condition number 1 would be some of what would trigger coming back to either under the new Title 20, it would either be the Planning Commission or the Urban Design Commission, whichever commission was determined to be the appropriate reviewing body.
Okay, thanks. And it's your understanding on condition number 2 that what is submitted isn't adequate to meet that condition, or else you wouldn't put the condition in there, right? Like there's a master plan in front of us right here, site figure 3.
Through the chair, Mr. Leonetti, but the process for future reviews was one of the requests. And so those items were added to identify what would require a review in the future versus coming in for every specific change of exhibit or new exhibit or reorientation of exhibits within the zoo. So condition number 2 was just to lay out those items that would trigger further a public review before the appropriate reviewing body.
Okay, so the whole group the idea is that the Urban Design Commission will set the standard for future review by the Urban Design Commission. However, if these standards are not set, then the petitioner would have to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission, not the Urban Design Commission. Is that correct? So we're essentially allowing the petitioner we're giving the petitioner the okay for the new Title 21 to not go before the Planning and Zoning Commission by this approval.
Through the chair, Mr. Leonetti, the request was to find out what changes would trigger a review. And in this condition, it was just spelled out what changes would trigger a review. Under the new Title 21, it would be determined, because it would become a conditional use in the new Title 21, which becomes effective in the only code starting January 1 of 2016. It would be determined which body, either the Planning and Zoning Commission or the Urban Design Commission, would be the appropriate reviewing agency for any one of those items that were laid out in condition number 2.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Leonetti. Commissioner Sawhill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple questions. I'll start out with one comment. I was disappointed not to have any comments from Watershed Management on this case. That would have been helpful. I was wondering what they thought of this. And I'm glad to hear that they have weighed in and set that condition. But I'm a little troubled with who has authority to allow encroachments into a stream easement. What is the normal process if you wanted to encroach into a stream easement? I don't think it's Urban Design Commission.
Through the chair, Mr. Sawhill, it would probably be the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals for an encroachment into the setback. It would be probably the Army Corps of Engineers that would permit the fence to cross through the stream, is my best estimate of which would be the approving authority.
The other thing I wanted to note is I believe the 1989 master plan approval mentions the stream and the 25-foot stream setbacks on each side. And I would also note that the plat recorded in 89 shows the stream and notes a 25-foot stream easement on either side. It also has a note on it that says any existing encroachments in 89 are allowed, but I think it was the intent to not make any more encroachments into the stream protection easement. And then now we have more encroachments, and the stream protection easement's been in Title 21 for a long time, so I'm a little troubled with all that. And then the case of the zoo trying to do the right thing here and then having it be a problem for them. I'm not real happy about that either. It's nice to know what you're getting into before you agree to do the right thing. So I guess my comments at this point is I'm not sure we have authority to allow encroachment into that easement, and I'm a little troubled by that. So with that, I'll end my questions and let other commissioners ask questions, and maybe the petitioner's representative can weigh in. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sawhill. Do we have any additional questions? Okay. Petitioner, will you come to the front, state your name for the record?
Hi, I'm Michelle Ritter with Dow HKM, and I want to thank staff for your report and for the commissioners for all your questions. It's been a kind of a complicated path. And I also have with me Pat Lampe, the executive director with the zoo, and also Kevin Pickle, who are both can answer some technical questions. But as Margaret stated, the zoo has existed since about 1964. In 1984, there was a zoo master plan that was approved. And as you've noted, yes, it's always been identified that there was a stream setback, and the elephant enclosure has always been in that stream setback. I kind of had it laid out to kind of for discussion, but kind of a backstory on how we even got here is that when the polar bear enclosure that Mr. Ed Leonetti had mentioned, when they were going through to get the building permits from that, there was a zoning comment that said that they were subject to a site plan review, and so the permits were getting held up. There's been changes to the zoo since 1989, and if you look at your staff packet on page 114, which was a condition of approval as part of the 1989 approval, it says that this 1989 plan has sufficient detail to allow the development of future animal exhibits without further review by the Commission. Per the PLI requirements in Title 21, however, changes to the current parking area adjacent to O'Malley Road and expansion to the parking into the southwest corner of the property will trigger additional review by the Commission. In 2004, this body approved a site plan review for the Gateway building and for the parking that's addressed in here. This condition has always been interpreted that if there's an animal enclosure change, that it doesn't have to come back to be amended. When the deal with the polar bear exhibit came up, basically we had to negotiate with staff. Okay, they can get their permit to build this because there was a lot of money being lost and it was subject to grant funding. But you need to come back and you need to update your master plan. At the, I think, 2 or 3 pre-application meetings that we had on this subject, it was discussed that we'd be updating this at the Planning and Zoning Commission. When we submitted our application, it was to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We also discussed in our application the situation with the moose enclosure and it being in the stream setback. Essentially, where the elephant enclosure had been, it was being removed and it was being replaced with a much smaller infraction, but yet an encroachment. However, by the time we were under contract to update this, the Little Campbell Creek improvements were almost entirely constructed. They had been approved. It was a PM&E project, and the design team, while I don't know if they were or were not aware that there was a stream setback, what I do know is that they never articulated to the zoo that once we remove that encroachment, we can't put the encroachment back. So the design that everybody agreed to and that the zoo actually saw as an opportunity, because the elephant had been removed, they saw it as an opportunity to have a new moose habitat, to work with the city on a project that everybody agrees is a good project for the city as a whole. And they even put their own money towards putting in the hardening at the bottom of the pond, so there's a hoof grid so that when the moose get in there to drink, that they're not stirring up the water. They have the edges of the stream have been armored so that they're not subject to erosion control. You're subject to erosion, and there's been a lot of other improvements. Everything on that project is complete except for the moose enclosure, because there's a couple things that need to happen because they are trying to get this armored for a moose habitat. The 10,000, I think, willows that were actually planted, they need to vegetate over a few years so that they can really be established before they put the moose in there. So that's why it didn't get constructed. To kind of go back to how we ended up here, after we submitted our application to go to Planning and Zoning, received our notice that we were on the Planning and Zoning public hearing agenda, I received a phone call about 2 or 3 weeks from that date and was told, oh, you know, there was a change in the 2008 code, and now even though the conditions of approval for the master plan say that you're going to go to Planning and Zoning, you have to go to the Urban Design Commission. Well, we already knew, we thought we were going to Planning and Zoning, so we wanted to have that conversation about, well, if we make an amendment, you know, we wanted to get clarity on this, on that page 114, that if it's an animal enclosure and it's per the design standards that were approved in 1989, we don't have to come back and we don't have to update the conditional use permit. With that being said, the zoo is in a really bad spot because, as staff noted, had they known that they couldn't have the design that they agreed to, which they looked at about 8 designs, and the thing they had to consider is there enough habitat area for at least 1 moose, no more than 2, to survive, as well as enough area to have enough vegetation so that it didn't get mowed down. So I guess that being said, you know, it's a little bit of background on how we're here. We would like to move forward because of the different obstacles that we've run into. We've been postponed for about 3 months. While there's no specific project that at this point is hinged to the approval of this master plan, at this point it's costing them a lot of money to keep having consultants go meet with the city and to come before the different bodies. And plus, they would just like to have their master plan approved so that they know they are in good standing. I think with that being said, I'm going to save the rest of my time for rebuttal.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes and 30 seconds left. Do we have any questions to the petitioner? Commissioner Sahel? Okay, Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just curious, Ms. Ritter, the transition from P&Z to here, and what was the reasoning that you were described for that?
I think there was a code change in 2008 that stated that it basically took the review authority for a public site plan review from planning and zoning to urban design. And my question to staff had been, well, the conditions of approval all state that we have to go back to planning and zoning, but it was determined that the way that that section of code, and I apologize for not having it right in front of me, but because of the way that code was written, that it basically overruled any resolutions that stated that you had to go to planning and zoning if it was based on a PLI zoned property that was subject to a site plan review. I'm not 100% convinced that we should not have gone to planning and zoning.
Yeah, excuse me, as discussed earlier, I'm a little bit concerned that we're not, we don't have review authority to put conditions on a parcel of land that dictates that parcel of land not going before conditional use.
And I'd like to clarify two things. That I don't believe that we're adding a condition that states that. I think we're clarifying a condition that has existed since 1989 and was originally approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And we're not asking that no changes, that every change can be done without going to planning and zoning. We're specifically saying if it's an animal enclosure within the secured animal exhibit area and it meets the design criteria that was approved in 1989, then it doesn't have to come back to review body. Essentially, we're saying if the elephant gets shipped off to California and a polar bear has a baby and they need to switch habitats, this is a zoo. Their needs are going to change. They're going to get animals. They're going to lose animals. Do you really need to see where everybody's living within this approved enclosure? And that's what we're saying. So if they were to do a major change to the Gateway building or to the parking lot area or to add something that was clearly not in line with the 1989 plan, then yes, we all agree that we need to go back to a board, whether it be this board or to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Joel Condon?
Yes, Madam Chair. Sounds like you're very frustrated, and it's very unclear in the code just how to handle a situation like a zoo. And I think it's unfortunate that you're caught in this sort of roundabout due to the fact that the municipality doesn't have a clear statement of how zoo conditions are to be handled. And as far as, you know, being the body that the commission that approves this, the commission that doesn't approve it, this is, the lack of clarity is perhaps a function of a dysfunction in the Title 21. So I'm not sure that I would like to see you continue to go through this sort of treadmill. I know that you would like to move forward on this project, so my feeling is that the frustration should be put aside in this case, and you know, we act as the approving body for this, and this should be an instructive meeting to staff that the municipality needs to clarify conditions at the zoo.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? No questions? We have a question from the staff. Margaret, please.
Madam Chair, I just would like to clarify. It's a question of, we've got two titles, old title and new title. Under the old title, a zoo is permitted outright in the PLI zoning district. So all that it's subject to would be a site plan review. Starting in January 1st, a zoo is a conditional use in the PLI district. So subsequent changes that would warrant a public hearing under the new Title 21 will then be an amendment to a conditional use. Right now, we're dealing with amendments to a site plan because that's all that was required in the PLI zoning district under the old Title 21. This request came in under the old Title 21, and I know that's really confusing, but it is a function of having two titles effective at the same time. One where it's a permitted use outright in the PLI, and the other title where it's a conditional use in the PLI. And I think that's what's led to a lot of confusion on the part of staff and for the applicant, the zoo itself, and their representatives. Because it never was a conditional use before, but it will be in the future under the new Title 21 when that's the only code that is available to use to come under. Right now they're both available, and it came under the old Title 21 site plan review, permitted outright.
Thank you for the clarification. Do we have more questions for the petitioner? No. Do we have any representatives of groups who wish to testify? Do we have any other individuals that wish? Will you please come to the front?
So is there going to be further discussion of the master plan before questions are open to the public?
No. It's open to the public now.
My name is Ron Elledge, and my wife and I own the Diamond H Ranch that's immediately adjacent to the zoo, and the Diamond H Ranch predated the zoo by about 10 years. We did hear in the statement that part of the master plan would include incorporating the zoo in the future master plan. And at this point, I would like to object to that situation, that the Diamond H Ranch be considered in that. Basically, what we're dealing with from our perspective is that the zoo has a very large operating budget, or they have a very large capital budget. They can have much larger influence than the Diamond H Ranch does, even into this august body here. So dealing with the contractors, vendors, service providers, they have way more influence than we do. And the situation is, quite a few years ago, Linda McQuarrie had a first right of refusal on the Lot 12, and we have two 5-acre parcels. Lot 12 is the northern one. And at that time, she had the first right of refusal. That property was transferred to the zoo illegally without notice to Linda McQuarrie that it was being transferred. So eventually what happened further on down the road, Linda was given a lifetime license to use the property as long as she continued to own the ranch. The license is a very loose agreement, and she really doesn't have much protection for the use of her ranch. as far as the zoo concerned. What we're afraid of is if the zoo has the right to incorporate into their master plan the use of that parcel, that we will find it harder and harder to defend it. We've already fended off several attempts to get the license revoked, and we're concerned that if it's part of the master plan, it will become more and more difficult to defend the property and the use of it for the Diamond H Ranch purposes.
Can you please spell your name?
Sure. It's E-L-L-E-D-G-E. Ronald.
Do we have any questions from the commission? We have a question from Commissioner Sahel.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I'm a little confused. So I understood the condition to be if they ever acquired or bought the Double H Ranch and they expanded into that area, then they'd have to change their master plan to include that area and what their plans were. So there'll be no master plan that affects the Double H Ranch until they buy it.
Okay, well, maybe I misheard at the beginning of this introduction. I thought that they wanted to incorporate, when the Diamond H Ranch was mentioned, that the incorporation into the master plan was also mentioned. No?
No.
Okay,
No.
maybe I
It was just if they will have to go in. Yes.
Okay. So in my other comment would then also be is there any way to ensure any protection for a small entity like ourselves from projects that go on at the zoo that negatively impact the Diamond H Ranch? We've had issues of flooding into the property. When they want service, Chugach puts the pole in our yard. I mean, these things go on and on. Is there any way that we can get protections built into part of the process?
Good timing. Your time is up. But can we... yeah, it...
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Sahir, were you done asking questions?
Yes. Yes, now he's asking a question, but I'm not sure about the
no,
answer.
I was
So,
they're not supposed to do that. They should not impact you with their projects. There is a process to go to the city and try to deal with that. And there's always civil matters, I guess, to deal with bad neighbors. But I would hope that you guys could figure this out. But that's, I guess, my attempt to answer that question.
thank you. Commissioner Ed Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, for staff and the petitioner, I'm just curious why the Double H Ranch is even mentioned. I mean, there's properties all around this master plan. I mean, would you guys be opposed if we just struck the Double H Ranch, or?
Is that a question
Yep.
to staff?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Through Madam Chair, Mr. Leonetti, the only reason that the Double H Ranch was mentioned is that they're on the west side of the they butt the west side of the zoo. To the north and to the east is all residential. That's where most of the landscaping and the required landscaping and buffering were required to be installed. And the only thing I know about the Diamond H Ranch is that when I was reviewing the history of the case back in the past, that there was a mention that the zoo would have first right of refusal if the Diamond H Ranch were ever to choose to sell the property. That's all I know about the Diamond H Ranch in relation to the zoo.
And that's in a previous condition of approval?
It's not a condition of approval. It was just an informational.
Is it a legal document?
I don't know. That would be a question for the zoo. I just know that in previous submittals that was mentioned for the zoo in prior years, that was mentioned that at one time that the zoo had the first right of refusal if the Diamond H Ranch were ever to choose to sell the property. Whether there's a document that states that, I don't know. A legal document.
I just thought it was an interesting comment because I didn't have it. It wasn't anywhere on my radar, and it's like, oh, it sounds like this is something that may not want to be in there, or maybe the zoo can. If there's, is that something that is in the plans to have first right of refusal for the double, whatever this is called?
Double H.
Yeah, Double H
There-
Ranch.
Diamond H. There is a first right of refusal agreement. So yes, and that's kind of one of the statements. And I think that this actually was put in there to actually protect them because and to kind of protect everybody because it's basically saying that if they do acquire that 5 acres, we have to amend our master plan so that that's not covered under the we don't have to come back to update that. So I feel it was a protection, but there's no objection to striking it either.
Okay, and I think Mr. Elledge just mentioned it's Diamond H?
Diamond H.
So we should
Sorry,
at least
butchering
perhaps
that.
do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other individuals that wish to testify tonight? No. Michelle, would you like to use some of your rebuttal time? You have 3.5 minutes left.
I think in summary, I want to state as far as the flooding, part of the Little Campbell Creek improvements should actually help some of the flooding that's occurring. I mean, it's going to be an overall betterment for both Diamond H and the zoo. And if there's more specific questions to that, I think Pat Lampe can answer that. And I just want to reiterate, while we recognize that, there is an encroachment and under normal situation, we wouldn't be here having this conversation. I do just want to kind of highlight that the new layout, which has always been shown in all of the design documents, will diminish the encroachment. So, and also it's a diminishment in the intensity because of the type of animal. So, it is a movement in the right direction. So with that, I have nothing left to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. The public hearing is closed. Okay, what's the wish of the commission?
Madam Chair, I had a question for the petitioner before we go that direction. One last one. And I was going to add a condition of approval that basically summarized that included all of the past conditions. And if you guys had any thoughts on that?
No. I think I'm hearing, if I think you're doing what I think you're doing, I think that's it's good for the ease of use of the approval. So I think we would be supportive of that.
Thanks.
Do we have a question from Margaret?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to clarify that has already been addressed in condition number 4 on page 4 of the staff packet. All conditions of approval previously granted remain in effect except as modified by this approval.
Thank you for pointing that out. I was going to throw in there all of the numbers so that it's easy to track and people can just go find the, like, resolution number 85082 and 85082A. Include all that stuff in there so that it's easier for somebody to go find.
If I may, starting on page 15, there's not only resolutions from the Planning and Zoning Commission, there are also special limitations on the property, and those all have to be incorporated. And there is a lengthy history starting on page 15, 16, and 17 of the packet. It lays out all the past approvals, and it also lays out the special limitations that were added in 1984 and 1988.
Correct. The only challenge is that when somebody goes and does a project for the project, the staff packet page 15 is not included with the conditions of approval. So that's what I'm trying to do, is get all of that incorporated into one document so that when somebody goes and looks for the conditions of approval, it's all in one little gizmo right here. And if that's troublesome, then tell me, but it makes sense if it's all on one piece of land.
Madam Chair, Mr. Leonetti, so what you're requesting is that going back to every approval or every amendment and and stating in this resolution all of the prior conditions of approval in this document.
Yeah, I mean, there's all I'm suggesting is, like, here's what I wrote. All conditions of approval from previously approved master plan site resolutions number 85-082, 85-082A, 2004-019, and Anchorage Ordinance 84-238 remain in effect as modified by this approval.
I see.
Does that suffice?
Madam Chair, Mr. Leonetti, it clarifies what
Okay.
how you're amending it.
Thanks.
Commissioner Joel Condon?
Yes, Madam Chair, I think that the document is clear enough as it stands, and that if somebody wants to dig deeper and go back and do research, they are completely free to do so.
Thank you, Commissioner Joel Condon. Can I get a motion? I was hoping that there was no one else trying to. Can I get a motion for approval? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Joel Condon and a second by Commissioner Jim Sawhill. Commissioner Joel Condon, will you like to state your motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to move to approve case 2015-008, Alaska Zoo Site Plan Review, subject to conditions stated by staff 1 through 5.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I believe that this is a project that has been it's a project that needs to go forward, and it's a project that is somewhat caught up in a bureaucratic nightmare, so to speak. And I think that in the interest of the municipality, in the interest of the zoo, the citizens, that this is a project that needs to go forward.
Thank you. Anything you would like to add, Commissioner Sawhill?
Yes, Madam Chair. I intend to support the motion, and as I stated earlier, I was a little troubled with the encroachment into the creek setback. I feel better that Watershed Management has weighed in on this and been out to the site and has worked directly with the petitioner to come to a resolution on that encroachment. I do believe it's improving the existing situation and bringing it towards conformance. I would also like to comment that looking at this packet and the conditions of approval, I think there was a substantial effort and cooperation between staff and the applicant to get this far. And I think I want to compliment staff for working with them and getting this done. This is a very complicated case. I also believe that it's appropriate to not bring this back for every little thing that happens within the zoo, and it's appropriate to allow the modifications to the animal enclosures to happen as they may. I think the Alaska Zoo is a very responsible entity and have operated responsibly and have they're an asset to our community. But I think the things that we have noted that do come back are appropriate. And so I think we have an appropriate level of oversight for whatever commission may hear this in the future. It's kind of strange putting restrictions on what the Planning and Zoning Commission in the future, but I think that's what we're doing. And I think at this point, we're the body to deal with it, and this should go forward. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sahel. Now we start voting.
Madam Chair, I had a comment before we vote, which might, I'd like to make a motion to amend the first 1A. And I don't know how we do that since this is already in the voting mode rather. But 1A should read Diamond H Ranch rather than Double H Ranch. Probably good to have that name correct.
I guess we can just do a motion. Can I get a motion to amend? Joe, can you remove your vote, please? Okay, can I get a motion to amend the motion, the original motion, to change in condition number 1 from Double H Ranch to Diamond H Ranch? Can I get a motion from Jim Sahel?
I second Mr. Leonetti's motion.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to amend by Leonetti and a second by Jim Sahel. And now we go to the original motion.
There's no objection.
There's no objection,
There's
so
no
it just
objection.
passes.
Okay, it
Now
passes.
we're back to the original motion.
Okay, I'm back to the original motion. So, can I get a motion? I have a motion. Okay, I guess we just start voting. The motion has passed. Thank you. We are moving forward with our second hearing. We have case 2015-0102, TLC Properties. I think Joe should be coming back.
Find Joe.
Maybe he's, oh, there he comes. We have a sign variance from AMC 2147060 to allow a monumental sign to encroach 1 foot into the required yard setback. let's wait for Joel to sit down to start with the staff report.
The petitioner is seeking a variance on this case, 2015-0102, from AMC 2147-060 and Schedule 21.47.060B to allow a freestanding sign to encroach 1 to 2 feet into the 10-foot side yard setback. The requested sign will replace a sign recently removed that had non-conforming rights. Standard number 1, this standard is partially met. The petitioner's submittal notes that placing the requested sign along Minnesota Drive is precluded due to a wide easement and low-hanging utility lines. The requested 1-foot variance would allow the sign without losing a parking space. The site is somewhat affected by the utility lines that are located within the 10-foot easement. The lines would impede complete visibility of the sign. However, a shorter monument sign could be placed below the lines. Standard number 2, this standard is partially met. The petitioner is not deprived of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district. The site, when initially developed, did not have to adhere to the present code requirements for parking and landscaping, and thus does not have the flexibility for sign placement that a newly developed site would enjoy. Following the renovation, the site has limited options for sign placement that fully adhere to setback requirements. However, it must be noted that the petitioner chose to remove the existing sign, which resulted in the need for a variance. Standard number 3. The standard is partially met. The division agrees that the building was built under different zoning rules and the site and structure have non-conforming rights. In renovating the existing building and the site to bring it up to current code standards for parking and landscaping, the options for placing the sign in a code-compliant location are limited. Standard number 4, this standard is met. The renovation of the building, site, and signage will elevate the character and value of neighboring properties while not conflicting with the intent of the sign ordinance. The granting of a sign variance will not permit a use that is not otherwise permitted in the B3 district. Standard number 5, the standard is met. The proposed monument sign is an improvement over the previous pole sign and will not materially add to visual clutter or blight. The encroachment of 1 to 2 feet in the side yard setback should not be visually evident. Standard number 6. The proposed monument sign is the minimum variance that will make possible a reasonable use of the land that provides the property parity with neighboring properties. There are 2 non-conforming alternatives, which is 1, place the sign in a parking space. However, the loss of a parking space, given the limited site options, is not a reasonable trade-off for a 1 to 2 foot side yard encroachment. The second alternative is to install a shorter sign in a conforming location, as mentioned earlier. Division recommendations. The division finds that the proposal meets all 6 standards for a sign variance. The division recommends approval of the case. If, at the conclusion of the public hearing, the commission finds that all standards are substantially met and approves the variance request, the division provides the following conditions for the commission's consideration, and those are conditions 1 and 2 on page 4 of the staff report.
Do we have any questions for the staff? No questions to the staff. We move forward with the public testimony. Do we have any representatives of groups who wish to testify? Any other individuals? Okay, we have a question by Commissioner Joel Condon.
Yes, thank you. A question for staff. It's my understanding that this sign, the existing sign was removed during renovation and that it is being replaced essentially as it was, only new, and it's no bigger than the sign that was there. It's not in a different location. It's just that code has changed over time and technically wouldn't allow such a sign.
The situation is that they had a sign there. I don't know when the sign went in, but the sign was there. Whether or not they had a sign permit for it back when it got, when it was placed, I don't know. The situation is that when they removed the sign, they lost the grandfather rights. So when they took that down, now they have to, when they replace it with a new sign, it has to meet current code. And current code shows it as being 2 feet, 1 to 2 feet into the side yard setback. And it may have been, way back when a sign was put in, but I don't know what that date is.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Ed Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Ferguson, do you know what portion of the sign encroaches the 1 foot? Is it the CMU base or is it the metal? I mean, this is
I was trying to measure from what I had here, which is not the greatest of plans, and it looked to be actually the sign face.
Oh, you think it goes all the way up there, huh? You think it goes all the way up to the...
I believe so. That's why they asked for a 1 foot. They stated it was a 1 foot encroachment, and measuring it, it looked like it could be 1 to 2 feet. So that's why I wrote it with to give them a little room on this.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Leonetti. I guess we close the hearing, the public hearing. Can I get a motion to approve? I have a motion to approve by Nicole Rem and a second by Commissioner Jim Sawhill. Commissioner Nicole Rem, will you like to state your motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. In the case, I move to approve case 2015-0102, the sign variance from TLC Properties, and I intend to support my motion. Subject to... Thank you, Jim. Oh, yeah. Subject to conditions 1 and 2 of the staff packet.
Will you like to speak to your motion?
No, I don't see any real, I don't see any other better place to put the sign. I think that the non-conforming, the sign is going back in the location it was previously. I think they've done the best with what they have. So I'm good with.
Thank you, Commissioner Rem. Anything you would like to add, Commissioner Sawhill?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I intend to support the motion, and I would concur with staff that the 6 standards have been met for a sign variance and would incorporate those findings by reference, and will support the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Sawhill. We start voting. The motion is approved. We don't have any appearance requests or reports. Any others? Any staff reports? No. I would like to notify that next meeting in December I will be in Mexico the full month.
Can you call in?
Yeah. So Ed won't have a chance to talk a lot.
I've got a question of staff. Is there any new board members on the horizon?
Through the chair, yes, there are. Yeah, the new person under the new mayor has put forward some has put forward some names for several vacancies on several different boards.
That would be nice.
That would be nice. Lori, is there anything you want to add? Okay.
You going to whisper what those names are to us?
No, it's a secret. I think so. We'll wait until they're approved.
Okay, can we get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I was going to chime in on the 1% for art that I'm participating in. It's a great process if somebody wants to go and volunteer. I'm on the Airport Heights 1% for art, and we're in the process right now of starting the scoping document.
And Ed, could you speak a bit about the time commitment and whether it's an interesting, enjoyable process, or encourage your other commissioners to volunteer?
Yeah, I'd highly encourage you guys to do it. It's time commitment. We're on meeting number, I think today was meeting number 4, and it's about an hour to hour and a half for each meeting. And Zena, I think is how you say her name, her first name. She's great. She's really well organized. She's very meticulous on the process to get from beginning to end. And the group of people that is on this particular, whatever it's called, jury, thank you, is great. They're great to work with. It's easy to communicate with them, and I'd encourage everybody to be on one if there's some that are coming up. Thanks.
Thank you. So can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Good job for an architect.
We have a motion by Joe Miller and a second by Nicole Rem. Thank you. The meeting is